So this is, I'm going to bring to order the Downtown Development Authority meeting Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. As we said, this is a standard meeting. We'll have time for public comment. If there is any public on the call today, it's just a reminder, you have 3 minutes. And if we want to remind all others to stay on mute until whoever is speaking is finished. So first order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from March 11th. Are there any comments or corrections from those minutes?
This is KM. I move approval.
This is Diana. I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
So one of the things that we'll have to do a little differently for the virtual meetings is actually doing a roll call to handle any approvals or any motions. So we'll have to go through the whole list, at least of those that are present, and you'll have to state yes that you approve or no that you do not.
Okay.
Would you like me to handle that for you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mayor Bliss?
Yes.
Cam?
She's muted.
Oh. Cam,
Yes.
you're muted. Okay. Greg?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's
I
everyone.
think-
Diana.
Oh, Diana, did I miss you? Sorry about that, hon. Well, you seconded, so yeah, we know you agreed. And then is Luis on again? Is Luis on yet? Okay. Thanks all.
Jamel here.
Oh, Jamel, you are here. Great. And would you like to motion or approve the minutes from last month?
Oops. Oh, was that for me?
Well, yeah, we all have to agree to approve or not.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yep. Nope. I agree to approve them.
Great.
Okay. So next is the March 30th, 2020 financial statements. Jana, would you take it away?
Yes, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. You have your financial statements as of March 31st, 2020, despite what the agenda item says. I just wanted to report, as I said in my cover memo, that the gain sharing rebates were issued to the city, the county of Kent, the community college, and the rapid or interurban transit partnership. I did want to break that out this year. I happened to read the county's economic development report, and they did seem to think that the DDA was capturing zoo museum and child development levies, which it is not. So I did send an email to Jeff Dode, who's the fiscal director there, to let him know that that wasn't the case. But just to be clear, the DDA does not capture those two special purpose levies, and it also doesn't capture the library capital levy. So otherwise, you can see the 10% reimbursements. All of those checks were issued to the county, the ITP, and the community college. The city has a policy that it doesn't issue checks to itself. So instead of a check, these transfers were made by journal entry through the city's accounting system. So with that, I'll ask for any questions or for your approval on statement D, which serves as your warrant.
Chair Wynn, this is Jim.
Hey, okay, Jim.
I just want to express appreciation for that table that shows the 10% rebates, and I certainly will bring that to the attention of my colleagues at the next county commission meeting. So thanks a lot for laying that out.
Yeah, thank you. That would be a big help, Jim.
Yeah, I think it's very useful.
For those of you that don't know, I do report monthly on significant happenings at the DDA, so that communication can remain somewhat better, I think, than many years ago, but I will include this next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Any other questions or comments on the financial statements of March 31?
This is KM. I move that we accept the financial statements as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that. This is Rosalind.
Okay, can we take roll call, or not roll call, but can
Yeah.
we take the vote?
Diana,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
moved, Rick,
Yes.
Jamal,
Yes.
and the mayor.
Yes.
And then is Louis on again or no? I think we're the only one. He's the only one missing today. All right.
I don't know if Jen voted twice, but I didn't hear my name, and I voted Jim.
Oh, yes.
Jim and Jen,
Jim?
we might get
Great.
confused a little here.
Sorry. I'll say Jim Talon next time, just so that we're clear. Great.
I just thought your voice raised a little bit, Jim. Okay, that was a joke. Okay. It looks like we have acceptance of the March financial statements.
Thank you.
Next is a couple of liquor license requests. Tim, do you want to take?
Yeah, I'll actually turn this over to Chama on our team, and he'll walk us through. We have 3 liquor license requests before you this morning.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. So yeah, we're going to be going through 3 different development liquor license requests. The first that you have before you is Bold Cigars LLC, looking for a license for their location at 144 East Fulton. This is going to be a request. This is going to be a cigar and bar lounge, which is going to be providing a unique social gathering space for Grand Rapids residents and visitors. This location, you may remember, had previously been a cigar lounge. And so they're going to be taking over that space. It's going to be Bold Cigars, but they're going to be doing about $100,000 worth of build out, upgrades and improvements in that space, which is going to include things like a new bar, an air purification system upgrade, fixing some of their lights and fixtures, and then also restoring the floors in that space. Given that we've reviewed their application request and are recommending approval of this. And so with the approval of this will then go on to the City Commission. And again, this is for Bold Cigars LLC at 144 East Fulton. Are there any questions?
This is Diana. I move approval.
This is KM. I support.
Okay, I'll go through the list. Mayor Bliss,
Yes.
Jamal,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Jim Talon,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and Luis. You on?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, next.
Okay, next we have GR Noir LLC, which will be doing business as GR Noir Wine and Jazz at 35 South Division. You may have seen them before last year for our small business, our retail grant program. And so they're coming for us. This is going to be a space that provides a wine and jazz experience for Grand Rapids as an alternative to some of the breweries that we have here. And again, this is going to be a space that's moving into that location. 35 South Division, if you remember, was a previously vacant lot just right there at the corner of Weston and Division. And so they're going to be moving to that space, be putting in about $300,000, over $300,000 of funding into that space to do the design and build out of that space. Again, this is going to be a unique kind of offering for it. I don't think we have anything like this that combines wine and jazz in downtown Grand Rapids. And so this is going to be a good opportunity in that space. So again, this is, we reviewed their application and recommending approval for it. Again, this is for GR Noir LLC, doing business as GR Noir Wine and Jazz at 35 South Division Avenue.
This is Jim. I'll move approval.
Okay.
This is Rosalind. I'll support.
KM,
Yes.
Jamel,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Louise,
Yes.
motion
Jim,
passed.
yes.
Okay, and finally, we have here CJ Sisters doing business as 40 Pearl, located at 40 Pearl Street.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Can we have whoever is rustling their computer or papers, put yourself on mute? It's hard to hear. Okay, sorry.
Oh, no worries. So this is going to be going to 40 Pearl. Again, as what this 40 Pearl's mission is basically to showcase wine and local wine and spirits from around Michigan, and pairing them with different types of charcuterie, seasonal soups and salads, seafood, and other kinds of foods. Since they've opened in 2017, they've invested about $875,000 into that space, which includes a $275,000 upgrade to the kitchen in their space. This license, currently the license that they have right now is a winery tasting room license. A license will allow them to be able to serve a broader selection of beverages, including liquor and beer, and kind of expand their base in the heart of downtown. So again, we reviewed their application process and the request, and are recommending approval of this. Again, this once we approve here, this will go in front of the City Commission. Again, this is for CJ Sisters, DBA 40 Pearl, located at 40 Pearl Street.
This is Rosalind. I'll move.
This is Diana. I'll second.
Okay.
So I have Mayor Bliss and Diana, KM,
Yes.
Jamel,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Jim Talon,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Luis.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Grandville Avenue and Infrastructure Improvement. Melvin, is this you?
That's me. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Such a fun time we are currently living in. The first item I have for you is for proposed infrastructure improvements along Grandville Avenue. So as part of my role here at DGRI is to ensure that we are keeping maintenance as part of our overall scope of work, and taking a look at the things in the streetscape and the pedestrian right-of-way, and ensuring that they are meeting our needs and that they're being taken care of so that they can provide the sort of services and amenities that we expect them to in the public right-of-way. So we want benches to be able to be sat on. We want trash cans to be able to hold trash. And so as part of that work, performed some audits last year of some infrastructure. And on Grandville Avenue, I found 2 benches that were in a pretty significant state of disrepair. The salt had eaten away the paint, and as a result, the sides, the feet, and the armrest had basically corroded beyond our ability to repair it with simple sanding and paint. And then also some of the wood on the benches were damaged as well. And then one of the benches looked like it was hit by something, and it was kind of warped and again cracked several pieces of the wood. And then in addition to that, several of the trash cans along the Grandville Avenue corridor looked like they had been hit by something, or again, were in such a state of disrepair that we were not able to repair them effectively enough for them to kind of perform their basic function. And so I connected with Landscape Forms, who is our primary vendor for providing this type of infrastructure. I had them come do a site audit alongside of me. They confirmed what I suspected, and that these things needed to be replaced. So I am proposing that we seeking approval for the purchase of 5 benches. So do we have a slide, Amanda, with that stuff on it? We could see that. 5 benches. Oh no, it looks like all my dots went away. So basically, we'll be adding a bench or replacing benches near the Custer building down by Founders, one across the street at the Tin Can, and then one also down by Bistro Bella Vita. And then in front of the Rapid, directly across from Founders, we'll be adding 2 benches to the streetscape, and then looking for 12 trash cans to go along the corridor. So that will replace not only the broken trash cans, but all of the other trash cans that are out there. And you can see a picture of the trash cans there. We'll be moving to the new Poe trash cans, which are outlined as the desired trash can in the streetscape guidelines that were completed last year. The bench is a Plainwell bench that you can see there. It's the same bench that's currently in that area. We'll just be replacing it with the same bench, which is also outlined in our streetscape guidelines. Happy to take any questions about benches and trash cans.
So Melvin, can you remind everybody what the dollar ask is?
Oh, yeah, sure. It is $36,540.
Love it. This is Jim. I move approval.
This is Diana. I seconded.
Okay.
All right. I have Jim and Diana. Mayor Bliss,
Yes.
Cam,
Yes.
Jamal,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Luis.
And then the next one is just that street light.
I didn't understand the comment.
Luis, are you on with us?
It looks like he just dropped out.
Okay.
Okay. So we still have approval.
This is Diana. I have to just say, when I look at the photo, I never thought I would longingly look at the roof of our building, of the community foundation. It's like, I want to be in there.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Okay, so next is the Portland Loo Construction. So Melvin, you're still at the virtual podium.
I am, yes. So as you'll remember, we have been doing some significant work to bring a bathroom down to South Division as part of the Heartside Quality of Life plan implementation. And we were in front of you, I believe in November, asking for funding to hire a consultant to do some site engineering for us. That work has now been completed. And so here I am back in front of you to ask for some more money, this time to hire a contractor to actually begin the work on the location to install the Portland Loo. So Moore and Bruges Inc. is who we hired to complete the site engineering, excuse me, for the Loo. And they helped us through the bidding process and kind of getting things ready. So we went through the city's design process, though, through design team 2 times to ensure that we were getting everything right to land this Portland Loo on the western bulb out there. We also received approval from the Historic Preservation Commission to land the Loo there. They were very enthusiastic and was hopeful that the Loo would help preserve the other buildings by curbing some of the undesired behavior that happened in that area. So we put this out to bid on March 31st. We received 2 bids for construction. The work will include a concrete curb removal and gutter removal, and then replacement of those things, removal and salvage of the brick pavers in Weston Streets. We'll be taking those out and putting those back in at the end of the construction project. Utility line installation and connections to the Loo. So the Loo will need both water and electricity. to be able to function properly. Installation of a concrete footing in the base for the loo, so the loo needs to sit on a foundation, and then installation of the Portland loo itself, which requires a small crane to lower into place onto the concrete footing. So the total cost of construction is $127,786. It's kind of broken down as follows. So $91,000 is the base bid for the construction work, $14,000 for site inspections and field observations by Moore and Bruchnik, estimating about $5,000 for the permits that we'll need to pull, a little over $5,000 for administrative fees, and then 12%, which is a little over $12,000 for contingencies on top of that. And then additionally, as part of our work, we'll be going in front of the City Commission sometime this spring to request approval for their $50,000 that the city has budgeted for this project as well. Happy to answer any questions about this.
So I have a couple
Sure.
that come to mind. Who's going to clean the restroom on an ongoing basis?
Sure, we'll be utilizing the Downtown Ambassador program for that. And currently we have them on a schedule to clean it 3 times a day. So basically when they open sometime in the afternoon and when they close, and then their number will be posted to clean it as needed. It has also been requested that since we often have ambassadors working South Division and often have multiple ambassadors working South Division, that every time an ambassador walks by it, they should check it.
Okay. How about, is this going to be hand towels or is it air dryers or what's installed there?
Good question. So there's no sink on the inside the unit. It's just a toilet. And so it'll just be hand sanitizer installed on the inside.
Okay.
I'm in now, but I can't hear anyone talking. I can see pictures, I see people. How do I turn the volume on?
Okay, is the volume up on your device?
I'm texting Dick right now to let him know.
Was that Dick?
Yeah, that was.
Okay. All right. So, and then this is one unit, Melvin?
You won't be able to hear. Usually it pops right up.
Okay. Are we good to go?
Chair, this is Rosalind, can I ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
And this is just the nature of the times that we're in. Have there been conversations, and maybe Melvin or Tim, you can speak to this. Have we started thinking about the possibility of adding additional hand sanitizer stations or even sinks with soap in the downtown area as we think about coming out of this pandemic and the need for people to want to feel like they're able to wash their hands more frequently?
Yeah, Melvin, I'll jump in on this. Yeah, thanks for that question, Mayor. We did, we caught some of that conversation at the commission meeting yesterday, and that's certainly something we're open to as things sort of get back to normal here. And I think we would look at some of our parks in more high traffic areas to deploy those. We haven't made any plans specifically as of yet, but open to do that for sure.
And Tim, I don't know if just a quick follow-up questions. I don't know if you or someone on your team is starting to look at options, what those may look like and how much they may cost. But it'd be nice to maybe see if other cities are already starting to think about this and do some installations.
Yeah, we'll connect with some of our partners around the state and in country to see if there's any good best practices that we could utilize.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? That's a good suggestion, Mayor.
Hey, this is Jermel. I was just wondering, I'm trying to look at this map here. Can you let me know again what corner this is on Weston Division?
Would be the southeast corner at Weston Division.
Okay.
That's right across from the parking lot for the YWCA, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that makes,
Okay.
does that help, Jamal?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much.
This is Greg Melvin. I have a question about who's responsible for the ongoing maintenance or asset responsibility for it. You know, if it gets dinged up, they're pretty sturdy units. I can't imagine it take much maintenance, but to the extent that it will, who has the asset responsibility?
It lies with DGRI. We have a line item budgeted for ongoing maintenance of the Loo.
So Tim, just a question, is this in tax funds or non-tax funds?
Jumping in, Rick. The construction is from the local tax, so our tax fund, and then the maintenance would be through the non-tax and via the block by block program.
Okay.
This is Jamal. I got one more question. With this, I'm looking at it. If it will look just like the photo, is there any way or interest in seeing what we can do to bring some more beauty to this unit?
Yeah, so we haven't really gotten that far yet. Our primary focus right now has been just getting us to the point to get the Loo installed. But we've had a lot of conversations. So if you could look at the larger picture on the right there, you can see there's like a frame built into the door. So we've talked about possibly adding some posters there. We're certainly going to put something up with like the ambassador phone number up. And then these units are actually able to be vinyl wrapped. So that's something we've talked about too, is potentially wrapping this with like an art mural or something else to kind of spice it up a little bit.
Oh, that's nice.
Good question.
This is Jen.
This is Luis. Can I ask a quick question? I just didn't hear the answer to the very first question about whether there was a sink in there.
There is no sink installed inside the Loo. Traditionally, the sink is installed on the outside of the Loo. However, there was concerns brought up at design team that the sanitized water would mix with the stormwater drain, and the city would prefer not to have that happen. So we have nixed the outdoor sink from our plans, and so there will only be hand sanitizer inside the Loo.
Okay.
This is Jen. What's the projected construction schedule?
Sure, we are looking at starting construction in June, and we have a hard stop date around the 14th of July because that's when we anticipate the Loo will arrive. So the site has to be ready by then so that the Loo can essentially come into town and be taken off the truck and installed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other comments? How about a motion?
I move approval. This is KM.
Thank you, KM.
This is Greg, support.
Okay, I have KM and Greg. Mayor Bliss,
Yes.
Jamal,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Jim Talon,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Luis.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
All right, here we go.
I think you're
One
still
more.
up. Yep.
So this next item is for authorization to continue with the block by block contract. So as part of our work in reauthorizing the downtown improvement district, it was decided to put the existing streets team contract up for bid. So we did that. In January, we released an RFP to kind of collect those bids and see what sort of responses we would get. And primarily we're looking at kind of three things. One was to ensure that we were getting the best practices from our current vendor, block by block, and seeing what other potential best practices there were from other vendors. Two, we wanted to have an opportunity to sort of adjust the scope of the ambassador team. So this contract the clean team contract especially was signed 5 years ago in 2015, the last time that did reauth, and then the safety contract has been ongoing since 2013 in downtown, and by extension, DGRI has changed its focus quite a bit in those 7 and 5 years. And so we want an opportunity to kind of reset the scope and talk about maintenance and place management as a bigger piece of what we need the ambassador team to do. And then 3, on top of that, we wanted to really highlight the wage. So back in 2013, when the team started, the starting wage for the ambassadors was $10 an hour, which was pretty good about 7 years ago. However, fast forward to 2020, and we're only at $11 now. And so as a result, we've kind of fallen behind on the wage scale for the ambassadors. And I think it's really important that we understand that, to get a quality team, we need to attract and retain quality individuals. And these folks are out every day, engaging with people, cleaning and helping our city continue to look great. And we constantly get positive reviews for the ambassadors. And I think especially highlighting in a time like this, that the ambassadors are still out on the street right now, sanitizing things, cleaning things, making sure trash isn't overflowing, making sure that the streets, though they are a little more empty today than they were a few weeks ago, that they're still being taken care of, and we still have eyes on the streets. And the ambassadors are working those front lines to ensure that downtown is both clean and sanitized. And so looking to up the wage was a big part of that as well, to $13 an hour. Did some kind of preliminary checking on similar jobs in the area. We felt that $13 an hour was right about where we needed to be, and then making sure that we continued to look at the wage, at least on a biannual basis, to make sure that we don't fall behind so far again. So we received, like I said, we released the RFP in January. We received 1 qualified proposal, which was from Block by Block, our current vendor. And in that proposal, I think they had some really good ideas and some good insights onto some of the things that we were looking for. And this was not an RFP because we were unhappy with their services. We just wanted to make sure we were getting the best deal, and we wanted to see what other best practices were out there. So in March, the Downtown Improvement District recommended approval for their portion of the funding, and we are looking to bring this to the DDA for your contractual amount, which would be $222,000. And this new contract, which we will need to negotiate, would be slated to start July 1st. And with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
This is KM. I would like to move approval and also to acknowledge what a fine job they have done and that you have done, Melvin, in keeping this program going and adapting to needs as they come up. So thank you.
Yeah, I would echo, this program is probably more important than ever for the downtown. Tim and Melvin, can you explain the did portion a little bit so the rest of the board understands what portion the did actually does pay and how that works? We just went through the did reauthorization process, so just to bring everybody else up to speed.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I can ballpark them. So the DID pays a little over $500,000 or will as part of the new contract for the maintenance and beautification piece. So that's specifically the clean team. So providing on-street ambassadors, as you can see in some of those pictures, pushing those carts, sweeping, removing trash, pressure washing, graffiti removal, as well as the horticulture team. So providing the planting, the flowers, and maintaining them throughout the spring, summer, fall. And then in addition to that, they fund the ambassador level. I think it's about $100,000 or $150,000 to kind of augment what the DDA is currently paying, which is $222,000.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So the contract amount and funding authorization that they did approved at their March meeting was for $737,000. So they carry the lion's share of the program. And so this is the DDA share of that.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Any questions? We have a motion. We get a second.
This is Jim.
This
I'll
is
support it.
Okay, can we take the vote?
Great. I have Cam moved and Jim Talon seconded. Rosalind,
Yes.
Jamal,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Luis.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
So, Tim, do you want to move to the virtual podium, please? We have the economic relief funding item on the agenda. If you want to go over that.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Rick. I will jump in here. Good morning, everyone. This item, I think, as we've heard a little bit this morning, the current situation that we're in is pretty fast moving and fast changing, and daily there are conversations around the way DGRI and the DDA could participate. And in our quest to sort of adapt to the needs, and whether that's making sure our ambassador team is out there, or thinking about sanitizing stations, or marketing, or other ways to support small businesses. In the past couple of weeks, as we're parts of these conversations, we've seen that having the ability to deploy our funding a little more quickly would be, I think, useful and beneficial. And as an example, we've participated in the development of 2 websites. So the COVID West Michigan, covidwm.org, as well as the Love Local GR. We are also in conversations weekly with our economic development partners in the city. And then also, again, just thinking how we can support our small businesses and employees, and thinking about things like gift card purchases and the like. And so what we're proposing with this item is to get a maximum amount, not to exceed $200,000 approved, so that between now and our next meeting, which is not until May 13th, we would then have the ability to use that funding. That would give us a little more flexibility beyond our existing purchasing policy, which, as you all know, caps us at $15,000 of discretionary funding. So the intent here is to be flexible. We certainly would not be spending any money that was not needed, and in order to ensure continued oversight via the board, what we're asking is that a subcommittee be formed. What we proposed was that the chair, vice chair, and then 1 volunteer member from the board would also sit on that. They could help us ideate and identify opportunities, and then also we would seek their approval before any purchases were made. So that is kind of the idea behind this. And I'll pause there, and happy to take any questions that folks might have.
Okay, any questions?
Tim, this is Greg. I just lauding the effort. I think it's needed now more than ever. The economic damages from current events are going to be pretty significant. So I applaud the DGRI stepping in to try to help and repair that breach. If there aren't any other volunteers, I'm willing to help. But I'm sure there might be other interests as well.
That's great. Thank you, Greg.
This is Luis. I have a question, and it's, I echo the comments. You guys are doing a great job, Tim, you and your team. My question is really about whether $200,000 is enough. My guess is there's a lot of need out there right now, and you guys will blow through that money pretty quickly because of the significant need. So I'm sure you arrived at that number through some thoughtful process, but I wonder whether that's enough.
It's a good question. We did arrive at it just through some of our ongoing conversations and where we think we could be useful. What I would say is that this is what we've identified here is to get us essentially between today and our May 13 board meeting, at which point we could seek additional funding. We also have money in the FY21 budget that you're going to hear about shortly that also we think will aid in some economic relief. That would, of course, be going into fiscal year 21. So the hope is that this would be enough to get us through 5 weeks. We're certainly open to entertain additional funding if you all think that it might be useful.
Yeah, I think this is Rick. I also think that, Tim, you and I talked about joining forces with the city or with other, maybe philanthropic organizations so that we can, number one, not duplicate efforts, and number two, maybe expand the pie to a level that can really be significant. So I think this could be a start, at least between now and the next board meeting, but I wouldn't disagree. I don't think 200,000 in and of itself is going to make a huge difference. But at this point, but I think that, it at least might help stir the pot, so to speak, to get others on board.
Hey, Tim, this is Mayor Bliss. So a couple thoughts. One, I'm very supportive. I recognize that this is for roughly 6 weeks. And I know that we're going into the end of the fiscal year and then looking at the budget for next year. Having been a part of a lot of the recent conversations, and then want to give a huge thank you to DGRI for stepping in to help, not with just the COVID MI website, but also the Love Local GR website. I know that you all are working overtime right now, so thank you for that. So I'm very supportive of this funding. I'm open to expanding it if you think it's needed. I see the topic as economic relief funding. I think we should be also really thinking about economic recovery. I know those two are intertwined, but I also see the needs very different for both the relief aspect, but then the recovery aspect. So, I support Greg joining the subcommittee, and then thinking about what's needed short term over the next 6 to 8 weeks, but then really thinking much more long term about how the DDA can have not just a seat at the table, but really be a leader in the space, especially in the downtown area, as we are going to need to come together in a significant way to recover from this pandemic.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mayor, and totally agree on the recovery piece. And I know you and I have had some conversations about that. I will point out, and we'll talk about it here shortly, but for the 21 budget, we do have set aside $1 million for what I would classify more as a recovery than relief. And with an expectation that as additional stimulus money comes from the federal government, and we're looking at infrastructure improvements and planning to get people back to work, the expectation is that we'll be much more active in that space as well. So we're continuing to monitor that. But yeah, I really appreciate those thoughts.
I think this is Rick again. I mean, I see this as hopefully kickstarting an effort, at least for now. There's a lot of small retail businesses, I think, that are really going to need not only relief, but also recovery. So, I see this as helping those small businesses in downtown, at least, and even in the neighborhoods, to really try to come back. So I would agree. I think this probably is not going to be enough money, but it certainly is. It's a good start.
So I'm happy to make the motion to support.
I would be happy to support that. This is KM.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? We can take a vote.
All right. I have Mayor Bliss and KM. Jermel? Are you muted? Jermel, are you in favor of supporting the economic relief funding? I wonder if he stepped away. We'll come back. Greg?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Jim Talon?
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Luis,
Yes.
Jamal.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So the committee, Mayor, did you want to join that committee as well? Is that what you were saying?
You know what? I'm happy to join that committee if you need another person, but I'm also very supportive of Greg joining that committee as well.
Well, personally, I don't know how Tim feels, but personally, I would entertain both of you.
I would love to join.
Great.
That would put us at 4, so we would still be under a quorum, which would work.
Okay, great. Next is the fiscal year 2021 budget recommendation. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am going to walk you through our proposed FY21 budget, and then as in years past, we're going to invite the staff members and leads on the alliances to give you some more specifics on the projects. A reminder that the actual action that is being requested of you this morning is to recommend the local tax, non-tax, and debt tax increment budgets to the City Commission for authorization. So you recommend the budget to the City Commission to get our bottom line funding for the year. The City Commission then approves it, and then it comes back to you all for adoption. So I'll do the setup here and talk through some of the process and specifics, and then hand it over to the team, and then we're happy to entertain questions as always. So last month, and Amanda, I think I'm in control of the prezo here. Oh, there we go. Yep. Last month, I kind of walked you through our typical process, so I won't spend a lot of time here. Only just wanted to highlight that, as in years past, we started our budget conversations with the alliances in the beginning of the year to begin to talk about priorities, cost estimations, and then just working those into the overall budget for the year. For our other fiduciary boards that we represent, just as an FYI, the DID board did approve their new plan and funding for fiscal year 21 on March 23rd. The TIFA will hear theirs later this morning, and then we'll package all those up and be at the City Commission on April 28th for that bottom line authorization that I mentioned. And then just to highlight the role of the alliance. So I think we're all hopefully by this point aware of the important role that they play, but we have 90 plus alliance members, volunteers from the community that play a key role each year in prioritizing these. And our hope is that the projects that folks have identified as being important for the coming year will still be able to move those forward. However, as we've discussed this morning, the world has changed pretty significantly. And so trying to be responsive and adaptive to what is happening on the ground today. So, 4 weeks ago, we were sitting in the back room in a board meeting, and we had a public meeting over at the Rapid in the Central Station. And then, 10 days later, there were no people on the streets, and the businesses were empty. And so we know that now our work continues to be important, if not more so, to be responsive to our community and people to help us get through this and recover. Today, we're focused on sanitizing streets and infrastructure and communicating to our stakeholders. And as we've talked about, identifying opportunities to support our business community. But in 60, 90, 180 days, our role will likely need to be different. And that is one thing I want to be sure to highlight if it wasn't clear already. But as we were going through this budgeting exercise, and I think as you've seen the budget before you, you'll note that there was not a lot of change between FY20 and FY21. And that is primarily because we know that we don't know a lot about what's going to be needed. And so we wanted to sort of promote and move forward a status quo budget that doesn't have a lot of change. Much of what you'll see are projects that are carryover from prior years, or our attempt to implement projects and priorities from other plans, and other plans that were recently completed or that are underway right now, such as the river guidelines or street space guidelines that we approved earlier this year. And as we've talked about, that was intentional because we are certain and sure that there will be a greater need for the DDA to be involved, and whether that is in small business support or more in infrastructure planning going forward. We are closely monitoring everything at the federal and state level as new stimulus packages and legislation passes through. And so our approach to the budget was really to maintain the opportunities to be flexible so that when the time comes and when we move into the economic recovery, as the mayor talked about, we are positioned to do so. And so that's much of what you'll see in the proposed budget. That said, we do still have our roadmap for the future. We are in our fifth full year of budgeting with GR Forward. And so we are still identifying goals and opportunities. And as we move into this recovery phase, I think the benefit that we have is that we've done a lot of thinking around where we want downtown to go. And hopefully through funding, we can realize some of those goals a little more quickly. Hopping now to a couple of the highlights in the budgets that were in your packet. Similar to last year, around 82 programs, projects, and initiatives were included. As I mentioned, the Alliance played a key role in approving and reviewing 90% of our discretionary funding, and then 100% of our discretionary expenditures go towards implementation of the plan. And again, a number of multi-year priorities are still included. Sorry, this presentation is jumping all over. Some of the multi-year priorities that are still in the budget are river trail crossings. We talked a little bit about public restrooms earlier this morning. A number of accessibility and mobility improvements, and those are coming out of our work with disability advocates and Common Notice, as well as mobile GRs, work around bicycle planning and just looking at our streets and street spaces. And then, of course, our retail and micro local business support is probably more important now than ever. And so we will continue to carry forward those programs. In addition to those multi-year projects and programs, we have committed obligations that we need to continue to uphold. Some of the major ones, no surprise, would be the debt service for the Van Andel Arena. So the debt tax increment budget that we're asking for your approval on and recommendation on is identifies $6.9 million in debt service payments to pay down the bonds on the arena. In addition, that budget includes funding to be returned to the state GRPS as well as the Kent Intermediate School District to the tune of $4.4 million. Some of our other committed expenditures for the year, of course, our administration to keep the lights on and our staff working. Our TIF reimbursement agreements, so these are our development support contracts that we have in place to incentivize development around town. So we have 1.4 million set aside to continue to meet those obligations. And then other debt service obligations, around $400,000 for those. Again, just to continue to meet debt service agreements that the DDA has made over the years. Those said, the majority of what is in your budget is for the implementation of GR Forward. You see the breakdown here by goal area. And as a reminder, goal 1 would be the river. Goal 2 is around development in the neighborhoods and creating a true downtown neighborhood. Goal 3, mobility and infrastructure. Goal 4, economic development. And then goal 5 is our events and public and open spaces. So you see the breakdown there. The lion's share, although there's a pretty good split among the goals, the majority or a big chunk goes into goal 5 because that includes also some capital work in some of our parks. So that is the intro and overview of the budgets that are before you. What I would ask now is for the lead staff to hop on and give a quick overview of the specific projects that are within the goals. And then once that is complete, we'll be happy to take any questions and have a discussion.
Okay, who's first?
So Andy, are you on?
Andy, you're muted.
How about that? Am I back?
There you go.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for your patience with that little hiccup. Goal one, as you all recall, is to restore the Grand River as the draw for our community and creating a connected and equitable river corridor. As GR Forward frames Goal one, it's really organized around what we can do on the edges, the river banks, to complement the in-channel improvements with the restoration of the Grand Rapids Whitewater rapids. So looking at improving access along the edges, recreational opportunities, a connected trail through downtown, flood protection has been an important dimension to that, as well as the economic opportunities as we anticipate redevelopment along the edges. I'd also note that GR Forward envisioned it not being just a downtown amenity and asset, but importantly, how do we extend the reach of the river and connect to the neighborhoods and bring those opportunities and connections further to neighborhoods that are adjacent to downtown. So one piece of just a little bit more background before jumping into looking ahead. One piece of work that the DDA has taken on over the last 9 months or so is really getting our head around a governance model to help support the implementation of the River for All plan, the GR Forward vision, things like that, and really developing an entity that's responsible for taking a lead role in that. We have paused that work momentarily, at least with the committee, while we manage through emergency response times. But I will tell you that the consultant continues to work on a draft plan of recommendations, and we anticipate bringing that forward here sometime in the near future. And some of what I'll talk about in a moment is a little bit of revealing some of the things we anticipate recommending. So looking ahead, we have put in some funding to continue that river governance conversation. I think we're kind of coming towards the end of a concepting phase. There's a lot of agreement that a new entity is needed, and I think we'll be moving into a formation phase. So we're thinking about how to incubate this new entity. A couple of tools that we've identified a need to work on is developing an equity framework plan to help support the standing up of the new entity and its work moving forward. And one thing we've observed around the conversations around governance is the need to develop a shared definition around equity, and then also doing some work around what our common goals are as a community around equity and equitable economic development in particular, but also some measurable outcomes and tactics, and really having an intentional community conversation about what that requires. That's also a best practice from many of the community groups around the nation that we've looked at as models. We're also budgeting some funds to do a corridor framework plan. As we've had these conversations around governance, it's becoming more and more clear that this is a regional asset that requires regional partnership to seize all of the opportunities. We're also looking more and more intentionally around this run from Riverside Park to Millennium Park. And while we've done a lot of individual planning in Millennium Park or in downtown or even up in the neighborhood parks towards Riverside, we've identified the need to get up a little bit higher in altitude and look at that corridor as a singular social, economic, environmental, recreational asset, and how do we have a more intentional conversation about mapping the strategic assets in that corridor and identify the opportunities for broader collaboration. So that those conversations could also support the standing up of a new entity and potentially, I think, giving it a work plan moving forward as well. We've also budgeted some funds to ramp up some river-specific engagement and activation, and help reconnect Grand Rapidians to the waterway. I think we've learned through all the planning that we have done over the last several years that there's really nothing beats getting people out onto the waterway and experiencing it in new ways to open our minds a little bit about the possibilities and what we might do moving forward. So we've built in some funding to get folks out on or around the waterway and help to support some of these other conversations around planning and governance. Moving into infrastructure just a little bit, we have budgeted funding to address some of the issues along the existing Riverwalk. We have been talking with the city about repairing the concrete Riverwalk from basically the JW Hotel to the Blue Bridge. You'll see in one of these pictures it's getting pretty washed out underneath it, and wanting to make sure that that's a safe and accessible area to enjoy. We're also budgeting some funds to do a conditions analysis of the existing boardwalk from Michigan Street, essentially to the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. You'll see in another one of these pictures, there's some maintenance work that needs to be done, whether it's railings or board replacement, and really just some additional work to make sure that it's accessible but also safe for people to enjoy that Riverwalk. We're also budgeting some funds in partnership with the city to look at some accessibility and safety improvements, particularly as it relates to getting into the river. So we're talking about some modest short-term accessibility improvements at Fish Ladder Park, as well as potentially on some city-owned property on the south end of downtown at the corner of Market and Wealthy Street. Just a couple more items. We're also budgeting some park design work. We will continue advancing designs and concepts at Lion Square. And then importantly, we're also including some funding to get the work started on at least preliminary design and cost estimates for the connection down the Belknap Hill. So from the Belknap Hill neighborhood down to North Monroe. Some of you all might recall there's some historic concrete steps there. But Jared Forward also envisioned some other types of accessibility improvements that would help restore that neighborhood's connection down to the waterfront, and certainly all the redevelopment that's happening down there in North Monroe. And then finally, we'll also have budgeted some funds to support the Downtown Speaker Series. You all remember we've brought in several speakers specifically related to the river to help us get our heads around river governance models and opportunities. And we anticipate that work to continue bringing in some of those experts as we continue those conversations around river governance. So that is a brief summary of the Goal 1 proposed budget activities. Tim, is there anything I missed or that you want to sharpen the point on?
No, I think you hit it all, man.
Any questions?
All right, so goal 2. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully we can get that slide changed for me. I put up a bunch of photos for you on my slide about some of the things that we've been doing with the Heartside Quality of Life implementation. You may recall that was the most recent kind of resident-driven initiative to improve quality of life in the Heartside neighborhood. And that work began in September of 2017. So we've been continuing to kind of implement some of those changes as an organization, both with streetscape improvements, as well as lighting, A lot of amazing infrastructure that was overdue to be improved. New holiday decor, all that kind of work has really been impactful, but continuing resident trainings and resident education. We do a mental health first aid training that will continue, action planning for community change, a lot of, even the MSU Citizen Planner course, we're planning to collaborate with the city on coming up. So education, really important. Package Park on the corner of Cherry and Division. There's been some gardening going on there and a lot of activation. So continuing that work in that location. Incentivizing local farmers markets. It's in GR Forward. It's something that the Heartside Quality of Life implementation plan called for. So continuing to develop partnerships and work on providing more fresh food access downtown. And then a couple of other things to develop, potential for some sort of employment program for downtown residents. We're in early conversations about how to get more folks employed downtown, get folks who don't need to park, that are already downtown residents, that could work at some of our local businesses. So some stuff that's developing is part of that implementation plan. Moving on to the Downtown Neighbor Network, a really strong effort over the past 2 to 3 years to develop a real community around neighbors. Folks that live in multi-unit buildings are some of the most separate and isolated folks, and especially as we're learning in this crisis, community is really key to building stability and long-range neighbors and owners downtown. So continuing our communications and marketing and to evolve what the Downtown Neighbor Network does for neighbors. Working on quarterly events to bring folks together, both with topics that are relevant to downtown life, as well as holiday gatherings and the like. That education, a lot of those downtown residents will be involved with our resident trainings through Heartside Quality of Life, and they have been really successful this year. And then our engagement focus for the year is really building an agenda for action around pedestrian safety improvements and collaborating with both Goal 1, Goal 3, all the goals really, as infrastructure improvements are put in to really think about pedestrian safety and think about people as they walk and traverse downtown. Residents are emboldened and excited about being a part of that change. And then also called for in GR Forward, and definitely a big priority of the Downtown Neighbor Network is marketing downtown and making it more welcoming. A lot of our neighbors are new to downtown. They're not familiar with what's right around the corner. And so continuing to work to bring those folks into the fold, to make them feel more comfortable and to help them learn about all the amazing amenities of being a downtown resident. Little bit of research will also follow. We did a downtown resident survey in 2019, so continuing to dig into surveys and information with residents to get a better idea of how we can help support their interests and keep them downtown and build that true downtown neighborhood that is home to a diverse population. So you'll see in the pictures some of the work at Package Park, some of our classes, farmers markets, tours, previews. We're really active working to create conversations and community downtown. So with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Mark, you there?
Yes. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Mark Miller. I'm going to talk briefly about some of the Goal 3 initiatives that we have planned. As Tim mentioned, a lot of our thoughts about this goal and moving forward for the fiscal year is just, ongoing implementation of some of our previous work, continuation of some of the initiatives that we've done in the past, and really beginning to think about like accessibility, inclusivity, and safety moving forward. So, and that's really about specifically in our case, or in many cases, the pedestrian safety that I think Anna Marie touched on previously. So I'm going to go through again briefly some of these things. You can see them in the slide, and I think going left to right in this slide is probably the easiest, and it also corresponds to the bullet points in your agenda package. So the first one is really thinking about the inclusivity portion of our work. We've been working with disability advocates over the course of about the last 3 weeks to build upon some of their exciting initiatives that they've been working on with us last year, that you saw some preliminary work regarding that. And we want to really move forward with some of that stuff and build upon it in fiscal year 21. So there are really 2 items that we're focusing on this year. And one of them is building on that work in terms of moving from the prototype to the programming for their top 2 prototypes that they established in that work last year, and then potentially adding 3 additional prototypes to get to the point of implementation. So that's the first prong of that work. The second one is as we begin to think about moving forward with this stuff, we really want to think about having some kind of strategic plan. And so they came up to us with a what they called a collective impact strategic plan. So this funding for this year also includes work on that plan, so we can begin to position ourselves to determine how best to actually begin to build some of the things and take action with some of the things that they are recommending in the future. So I think we're really moving forward in a purposeful way in terms of that inclusive and accessible work that we plan on doing. So that's the first one. And then the other ones, if you haven't been to City Hall, and probably many of you haven't, I think we just recently put in some new bike racks in that tunnel that goes from Monroe into City Hall, also a bike repair station. So that's just an example of what we plan to do with a lot of our bicycle friendly improvements this year. So we've been working with Mobile GR quite extensively to figure out what we should be doing with adding bike racks, adding the service stations, and adding other bike infrastructure to our downtown. And that's really part of this connectivity and this mobility portion of our work. So we'll be moving forward with a lot of projects regarding that stuff this year. There's one of the items in our budget is what we call pedestrian improvements, but it's actually taking the Monroe Center Alley that we did work on last year with variety of stakeholders and a consultant, and actually implementing that. So our plan is to begin to rebuild portions of that alley to make it more pedestrian friendly, to make it more green. So it's taking up the existing pavement and making the pavement more permeable. So we really want to implement that project this year. So that's one of our strategic goals this year. And that falls under the pedestrian improvements. And then there's a whole bunch of other pedestrian improvements that we're thinking about doing. One of them is working with the Rapid on their TOD project, and that's the one on the far right-hand corner of the slide, looking at Wealthy and Division. And so looking at a pilot program or potential physical improvements as part of that plan as they complete that plan later this year. And then there's also an inclusion of more furnishing updates, as Melvin had presented earlier with some of the stuff that we're doing on Grandville Avenue. We have a budget in Goal 3 this year to continue to upgrade and add benches and mostly benches and litter receptacles throughout downtown to get them more consistent with our guidelines, to improve some of them, to increase some of them, and to even fix some of the benches that are broken in various places in our downtown. And then in terms of the stuff that Anna Marie talked about and related to pedestrian improvements, specifically at crossings, we've been working with Mobile GR to think about what other things we can do within their budget framework moving forward. And that includes potentially doing a river trail at Fulton Street, very similar to what we did at Michigan Street and in line with the River for All guidelines. So we want to look at that crossing at Fulton Street on the east side of the bridge. And then also installing some rapid flashing beacons. It's been specifically talked about at Monroe and Campow, that crossing, which has been a safety concern for a while. Then also working with Mobile GR and Traffic Safety to install or to reconfigure many of the pedestrian signal heads to countdown signal heads, similar to what you see at Fulton and Division today. And then finally, we will be continuing our ongoing support for the DASH services once they restart this year. So I think that is a good overview of some of our highlighted projects. And then just to let you know that we have a couple of carryover items in our budget for next year. That includes the transit shelter, continuing to implement transit shelters downtown, and then a portion of the funds to reconstruct Division Avenue, which is currently underway today. So thank you.
Chairman, this is Jim. I have a number of questions, if I could.
Sure.
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you.
This is a strange.
Yeah.
Neat. Go ahead.
Just wanted to kind of ask a question. I don't know if you mentioned it, but the resurfacing of Ottawa Avenue puts up a little bit of a flag for me in that I know that I've had some conversations with folks about the probability of the county doing a major project there on Ottawa, and I always worry about resurfacing a road and then doing major construction right along that road and damaging that resurfacing. Is there any way to coordinate that work for that project? Is my question.
I think there's certainly a way to coordinate it. And from our perspective, I think we're relying upon the city to continue moving that project forward. I know that it's in their fiscal year or in their capital budget to resurface. But there's a lot of variables. I think even the idea of conversion of two-way is still being studied and discussed. So we're taking our cues from the city moving forward with that. And I think that we wanted to be proactive in establishing at least some budgetary support for that project. But we have to sort of wait and see where that goes and how it moves forward from the city's budgeting and logistics standpoint.
Yeah, that's helpful. I was concerned that because it's in the budget that it was going to happen sometime next year and that there'd be potentially a little overlap there. So appreciate that clarification. Second question is on the wayfinding system implementation item in the narrative. What's modernization of the downtown wayfinding involved? What does that look like, the modernization?
So I think that the thing with the project right now is that we still intend to be able to put out an RFP for services to redesign that system with the intent of eventually removing the stuff that's out there, which is somewhat dated and not necessarily as useful as it might be the way people navigate a city today. So I think in the terms of modernization, is just moving from a 1990s model to a 2020 model or a 2025 model. And so this is in our minds, a multi-step process. The first one is certainly hiring the consultant to be able to give us some redesign prototypes for the work. And then once we have those, is to begin implementation of the removal of some of the existing infrastructure and reinstallation of new infrastructure.
That's really helpful, thanks. And one last question, if I could. the Dash North funding, part of it is local tax, some of it is non-tax. Can you remind us of what those different sources are used for, why we're using both sources?
Tim, do you want to jump in on this?
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. The purpose behind that is really just to make sure that we're not exceeding our fund balance targets for the year through the local tax. And particularly as you look out into some of the out years, we come fairly close to that. And so the use of the funds stays the same with the DDA. And as Dick will tell you, and he's on the call, so I assume he's nodding, our funding is limited to the infrastructure and actually to the purpose of the the purchase of the buses. It is not for ongoing operations.
Gotcha. Thanks. That helps. That's it for me.
Okay. Any other questions for Mark and or Tim?
Well, as we're queuing up Chama here, I'll just point out, I think, to one of Jim's points, and if I didn't mention this in the outset, this budget, in all budgets, is our attempt to prioritize where we think we would want to be able to support projects in the next fiscal year. Just because an item is in the budget doesn't mean that it's approved. We still come back to the board for our authorizations. And so you would see all these things, assuming that they haven't been approved at a prior meeting, these would all come back to you at some point in the fiscal year for your approval.
Okay, that sounds good. Next.
Good morning again. This is Chama Katavi. I'll be presenting on goal 4, which has the focus of expanding job opportunities and ensuring continued vitality of the local economy. And particularly in this time, I think, as it was mentioned before, for much of this year, looking at the priorities for this year is not so much changing so much what we've done so far this year, or even changing what we're planning on doing in the future, but really leaning into this moment of recovery, and with a lot more intentionality and focus on supporting the local businesses downtown. So I'm just going to go through some of these things and kind of put into the larger context of some of that effort. One of the first priorities and one of the places that we've been able to work with and directly support businesses downtown has been through our retail incubation program. And so this year, I think we're going to still continue doing that, particularly looking for opportunities to get businesses into specific previously vacant spaces. Is there somebody?
Yeah, I think we need someone to mute their bathroom.
Someone's doing the dishes.
Yeah, that's a nicer way of saying it.
So with the grant, as I mentioned before, other times that I've presented, this grant has been an opportunity for us to not only support an individual business, but then also engage other ecosystem partners in the support and providing resources for small businesses to not just downtown, but to the overall business ecosystem. And we do our part by providing an opportunity and smoothing that transition into them moving downtown. I think for us, we want to continue that program. This past year, we had some success in getting out and attracting 7 new businesses in this past fiscal year to the downtown area. Some of them haven't opened up yet, but with that focus, with each one of them kind of talking about what the exact needs of those businesses has made it a bit easier for us to figure out who we should engage in the overall environment and providing technical assistance and other resources. But another place that we wanted to kind of focus and expand even further was the retail incubation aspect of it. And primarily, and this is going to be more of thinking of it in a larger sense. I think we had talked about looking for a particular space that we could do incubation, and I think that's going to be a longer term goal. But right now we have an opportunity to engage with businesses through just DGI produced events. Right now we already do engage vendors at different events that we put on through Relax at Rosa. I think we had an artisan market at the World of Winter. And so shoring up that, making that a bit more robust and providing some more technical assistance and for businesses who may not be ready for a brick and mortar space downtown but may still want to figure out whether that their businesses could be viable and get a taste of it. We have some spaces that some opportunities to be able to give people that opportunity and kind of also beef up some of our the retail aspect of some of our events. The second part of the priorities are much more focused on like the overall ecosystem that we're working on. The first thing, the Small Business Expo, which we did the first one last year. We had about 132 vendors that were part of that, including businesses as well as resource providers. And so this year, particularly, we want to expand that idea. And primarily, this was an event that was to set a baseline for what was happening in the overall economy ecosystem for small businesses. So whether you were an existing or an aspiring entrepreneur, and wanted to just understand what is going on in Grand Rapids, who was doing what resources and support was out there. You would have a one-stop shop to be able to find out those resources and to do a follow-up, as well as providing an opportunity for resource providers and technical assistance organizations to be able to get in front of businesses, a wide range of businesses throughout the city, and be able to promote their programs and services. And particularly with this year, I think one of the things that we're talking about in Goal 4 and evaluating last year's was that because it was the first year and it was a half-day event, the focus of it wasn't as well defined. And I think this year, one of the things, given like with the lockdown and the kind of the uncertainty that's happening right now, this may be an opportunity to, once we're coming out of this in the recovery, as one of the rallying points for showing what everyone is doing, how people are coping, and if there are additional resources and programs and other kinds of initiatives that are happening, this would be a great place to be able to talk about those programs and promote those programs and get the information out. So we're looking to really lean into that. We have a planning committee already put together for that event, and I've been looking and following closely some of the developments to see if that ends up changing. But right now we have a save the date for September 9th, and right now we're looking for that to be an expanded kind of an event, with it being a full day event with some breakout sessions and a keynote speaker. And again, with a general kind of overall theme of just this recovery and getting back to business. So again, September 9th is the save the date for that event. We're working, that planning committee consists of people from the chamber, from the Hispanic Chamber, some of the local micro lenders, and then also some neighborhood organizations like the Uptown Quarter Improvement Authority to kind of give us a neighborhood business focus on it. Additionally, we had talked about doing some downtown business seminars, primarily providing giving information and providing resources for businesses that are downtown on what it takes for them to be a successful business. One of the things that we realized in looking back at this past year was that a lot of the partners that we have that sit on Goal, a lot of the people that we work with in the entrepreneur support organization world already sit on our Goal 4 Alliance. And a lot of them are already putting on a lot of these kinds of seminars that would be useful for businesses downtown. And so part of it has been not so much thinking through what DGI should, how DGI puts on the events themselves, but how do we make sure that they're accessible and that our constituent businesses have access and know about them, and then are able to access and be able to attend those events and those seminars. Something that was a bit new this past year, was supporting of the downtown business associations. There's a new business association that that was started up along Monroe Center, and basically this was the idea of supporting them was to be able to have a place where we can get direct information, feedback we can disseminate information directly to small businesses on a regular basis that are downtown, and then also get feedback and get input from businesses that are downtown. And partially part of the reason that we supported the creation of the Monroe Center Business Association was specifically because of hearing back from those businesses about some of the challenges that they were facing, and some of and us having those conversations about where DGRI should fit in and who else we should pull into that. We needed to have regular meetings and regular get-togethers of that. So those organizations are meeting on a monthly basis, but we're going to be moving forward on a quarterly basis, getting the leadership from each one of those associations, that is Hartside, Monroe Center, Monroe North, and then Stockbridge, getting the leadership together to kind of talk about what their priorities are for the quarter, to talk about different efforts that they have going on and concerns, and then we are able to then talk about like what we're doing in this space and promoting and push and supporting small businesses and helping some of these things align. And that really speaks into some of the next thing we're talking about, the downtown business retail marketing aspect of it. There's a certain level in which we know that the businesses themselves are going to be marketing themselves, but then also there's a collective marketing that could be done. And thus an ongoing conversation about what that exactly looks like. Part of that is an effort from DGRI, but then also it's hearing back and getting feedback from the specific corridors and specific associations about what they would like to see on a very kind of broad level. For us internally, we have been talking about not just our own programs like the retail grant or our downtown enhancement grant to ease the transition of coming downtown, but then also tying some of our events, the things that we have as far as events, as opportunities for businesses to be able to increase their visibility, whether that's DGRI produced events or whether that's city events, and just our overall marketing and promotion. I think right now in this kind of space, one of the places that we started off doing this is with the Love Local GR site that we put up that's promoting, giving people who want to support businesses, who don't know businesses that are still open during this time, that still want to patronize and support those businesses, whether that be through delivery or curbside service or purchasing gift cards, an opportunity to be able to access and get that information now. And we want to kind of jump more into those kinds of opportunities, whether that be advertising, whether that be connecting and providing opportunities for citywide events that are happening downtown, whether that be Outprize or some other, or even some of our own our own produced events, whether like Relax at Rosa, to lean into that. Some other ideas that came out of that were organizing something of a concierge tour. Monroe North recently did a banner program for that. They were able to put up banners for Monroe Center. I mean, from Monroe North, you'll see the second picture on the bottom, the middle picture, you'll see an example of their banner. And that was an opportunity for them to get engagement for their businesses as well as promote their business district. And really big thanks to Melvin for organizing and helping them out. And that was something that the other associations were really interested in, particularly Monroe Center, as they were trying to get more input and participation from the businesses in their area. So a lot of that is the support of the business associations is going to be really very much tied to the overall promotion and marketing that we're doing for not just downtown businesses, but then promoting specifically retail and shopping downtown, and then particular corridors. And then finally, we have the data and research. This data and research, in a general sense, is understanding some of the general overall state of things. We've been keeping a churn vacancy list and been tracking some of the turnover data in some of the spaces. That last slide, the last picture that you see there is a picture of a retail vacancy map that we had that was produced for the Small Business Expo. And as just a starting point for anybody that was looking to do business downtown, to move to a storefront, figuring out where the opportunities were and making that easier. We're going to continue that, but then also looking for ways to maintain whatever we end up getting out of the retail study that Ray Chapp is going to be doing through as part of the retail citywide retail study. That's going to be information that's going to be really helpful and useful for us in just tracking the impact of our programs, in particular like our retail grant program, and following up like when businesses come downtown, what are the challenges they have if they have to leave? What was it that made them leave? And then just tracking some different data points from just availability to lease rates, and that would also help us inform us in some of the more abstract conversations of of support for businesses, particularly in this time of recovery where we're not exactly sure where the need is going to be. Yeah. So are there any questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Are you guys getting me?
We're getting an echo.
Yeah, if everyone could mute that's not speaking, I think that would help.
Okay. So I just have a question about the retail study. I'm curious where that is, and then if we have had any conversations I believe we're hiring a consultant to do that. Have we had any conversations about the impact of the current pandemic on the validity of that study? And if it makes sense to continue to do it now, or do we need to push it off? I'm just curious if there.
Yeah, and I'll jump in, Chama. So that study has not started. When Rich Apple was hired by the chamber, his first order of business was kind of making the rounds with business associations and, meeting stakeholders. And sort of coincidentally, as he had his RFP ready to go is when everything sort of hit. So there's a pause on it now. What we've talked about, the Chamber City and the Economic Development, or I'm sorry, Chamber, us and the City Economic Development Department is holding off on doing it for the moment. I do think there's going to be probably a critical need for it as we're looking at a recovery, so that we are getting a really good understanding of what the new normal is going to be and where we can be thoughtful and strategic with funding to help bring back business and retail. I think there's no doubt that we are unfortunately going to lose some of our businesses, both in downtown and on some of our key corridors. And so I think we just want to be really thoughtful about how we help to grow business districts back when things are ready to start recovering.
Thanks, Tim.
Any other questions?
As Kim gets queued up, just one other thing I was going to point out in Goal 4 is that I touched on some of the economic recovery funding that is found in the Goal 4 line items. So there's $300,000 accounted for in the local tax, and then as you saw in the non-tax budget, there was a $700,000 line item set up. Again, we don't know exactly where that funding will be used, and will, of course, the board would be asked to provide authorization on that going forward. But we felt it was important to signal that we are going to be participating in the recovery, and that there may be more that's needed, but that was our initial attempt. Over to you, Kim.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Kim Vandriel here. I'm in charge of Goal 5, which focuses on the lighter, quicker, cheaper approaches for activation in public space that helps to bring people downtown to Grand Rapids for experiences, creating memories and supporting economic impact through events, programming, public space activation, and place management. Items, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. I know we're on a time crunch here. So some of the programming and plans that we have in Goal 5 this year is to continue to support public art with large art installations, street art, and our Women's Way project, alley activation, programming with our own program, but also create a program for others to activate alleys as well and be able to financially help support that. Fitness programming through the Parks and Rec department, and then also build upon that like we usually do. River-related programming, continued support of our Activate This Place grant, which has been growing this past year, where we support people's initiatives to activate public spaces through placemaking, window activation, and our parklet grants. Food truck operations and ordinance support, winter activation. We're really focused on continuing to expand that program through events, not just through World of Winter, but also supporting others that are doing winter activation initiatives and public space activation. Our Pop-Up Performer, which is our busking program. We're also continued support of our dog park and our ambassador program, parklets, the Portland Loo, Calder Plaza temporary improvements, and events like our State of the Downtown, support for our event management program that trains people how to put on a successful event in the downtown. That we do that quarterly each year with the Office of Special Events and get about 60 attendees per class. It continues to be very successful. Support of our holiday decor program, and expanding upon that again this year to include other corridors and updating lights and installations that need to be replaced. And then support of some of our parks maintenance, such as updates to Rosa Park Circle, items like that. And Arena Plaza improvements as well. So that's pretty much a quick rundown of Goal 5 and some of the priorities that they have designated this year. Any questions?
Chair Wynn, this is Jim. I have a few questions and a comment.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks. First one, I guess, I think I might know the answer now that Tim talked about earlier. The first bullet on the narrative for the Arena Plaza improvements is both local tax and non-tax. Is that a similar issue with the fund balance that it's listed that way?
Yep, that's
okay.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. And then I was kind of wondering about the urban rec improvements line item that talks about cigarette urn bins, trash receptacles, beautification. I wondered how those things fit into urban rec. That's in the narrative as well. Or maybe I wasn't reading the sentence correctly.
No, I think you are. That's just how they have always been kind of coded under that line item.
So we are these trash receptacles in certain spots that are recreation oriented, or what? A little confused by that, but.
Yeah, I think the history on that is it's infrastructure improvements in public spaces. We last year, you may recall, we used it for the actual exercise equipment in the Canal Street and 6th Street parks. And so that's kind of why I took on the urban rec name. It is typically more used for infrastructure. And if that's confusing, we can change the title on it. So it's more public right-of-way infrastructure improvements.
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned about changing the title because, you know, back 8 years ago or so, urban rec was something that we were really focusing on, and I don't know that we'd want to lose that focus. So I guess that's my concern, is if we're losing that focus on recreational opportunities downtown, which there was a lot of conversation about a few years ago for some other things that are being done with those funds. Can you talk about that a little?
We are still supporting urban recreation programming, like all of the parks department's outdoor fitness programming. We financially support and we build upon to bring other diverse activities. And then also this year, you know, we're focusing on ways to activate the river, both wet and dry, through programming. It's just put into our public space activation line item and programming instead of the urban rec programming, but we still are investing, of course.
Okay, just didn't want to lose that that focus or that interest in recreational activities downtown. The last thing, and this is just a comment, I wanted to express appreciation for the 2 bullets, the public space or the police foot patrols and the support for the City of Grand Rapids Office of Special Events. And my appreciation goes back to the discussions that happened years ago between the county and the DDA about using tax increment funds to support normal city services. And in my work statewide with the county association, there's also actually in our legislative priorities some concern expressed about that. And so just wanted to recognize that those supports for city services are coming out of our non-tax increment, and appreciate that. Thanks.
Any other questions on the budget? I do have one comment I'd like to make. At the bottom of these budgets, you'll notice a line that says fund balance target. This is rather an arbitrary number, 15%. I think I would like, and maybe we do a task force, it doesn't matter, a committee, something. I think we should establish our minimum fund balance that we would be comfortable with. I'm particularly concerned about the non-tax fund as we sell off parking lots, et cetera. Our ability to have revenue keeps diminishing. But I do think that both funds, we should have some sort of guidelines that we're comfortable with moving forward, just for, unfortunately, these kinds of economic sort of upheavals that could happen again. So I think it'd be prudent for us to at least look at that, not today, but maybe look at it in the near future, so we can relax a little bit of at least have a guideline of what we think we should always maintain as a fund balance moving forward. Because if you look at the non-tax fund, I don't think 120,000 is a good number to try as a goal to maintain. I don't think that's going to serve us well. So I don't know if anyone has any additional comments on that, but I really think it might be prudent for us to think about this.
Yeah, I think, Rick, that's a great thought. I know you and I have talked about it. I was just going to add that that target, that 15% target, is what the city uses for their other funds, but the DDA, as a separate authority, has the ability to set their own policies. And so I think, as we've discussed, I, as kind of the lead staff, would welcome some input from the board on what they are comfortable with, so that we have a clear target that we're all in agreement on.
Okay, I don't know if there's someone that would like to join me on a committee to look at this, but I do think it's worth a look.
When this is Luis, I would be happy to join you.
Okay. Anyone else? We can have up to 4.
I would be happy. This is KM. I would be happy to participate on that.
All right, thank you.
Great. I'll go ahead and get that set up.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And so just to kind of land the plane on the budget, as I mentioned at the top, the action requested is that you recommend the local tax, non-tax, and debt tax increment funds to the City Commission for their consideration at the April 28th meeting. Of course, we're happy to take any additional questions if there are any, but just wanted to reiterate what motion that we are seeking.
Do we have a motion?
I would move that motion, as Tim stated. This is KM.
This is Diana. I second the motion.
Can we take our vote?
And just a comment from Jim, if I could.
Sure.
I just want to, we say this every year, but again, want to express appreciation for the incredible amount of work and community process that goes into putting this budget together. It's a true work of art, and really, really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so I have a motion from KM, a second from Diana. Mayor Bliss?
Yes.
Jermel? Shmel, are you on? I'll come back to him. Greg?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Jim Talon?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Luis?
Yes.
Jermel? Okay. We'll have him as an abstain for this one then.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. Tim, your President CEO report.
Yeah, I will. I'll be brief. We've talked about a number of the things I wanted to highlight.
Hello?
Oh, who we got there?
This is Jermel. I've been yelling and it didn't do anything. Can I still give a yes for the last one?
Yes, that'd be great.
All right. Sorry about that. I
I'll
don't know
mark
what
it down.
happened. I'm also driving though.
No worries. Thank you.
Focus on the road. Okay. Thanks for getting that, Jermail. So real quickly, just so we can allow some time for any public comment and board discussion, a few things to highlight. One is on the revenue side of our budget, we're still kind of waiting to see the impacts from certainly the our interest on investments, but also on parking, which, as you all know, is a pretty significant portion of our non-tax revenue. So we're watching that. We did, however, close on the sale of 158 Oaks. So that was the remnant parcel that was sold to the Lokes team. So we closed on that at the end of March. So that money is in the bank, and we'll be able to utilize it either in FY21 or in years going forward. So wanted to point that out. Another item from last month to bring to your attention. So we approved funding authorization for our skate park. We were made aware after the meeting that we needed to notice it differently and allow opportunities for bidding. We got some emails from contractors that were interested in the project that for whatever reason weren't able to bid on it. And so we are, just to make sure we're running a fair process, we are going to release an RFP for that later this week and allow a rebidding. The funding request would then come back to you. The target is for that to happen in May. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that because you'll likely see the skate park funding authorization come back in your May meeting. In addition, the Area 7, 8, and 9 planning study we did get our responses back. Our goal was to have a contract for you to review this at this meeting. However, in light of everything that's going on, we did push that back to May. We are reviewing the proposals internally and have a steering committee that we're going to be getting together virtually to review those. So expect to see a contract for that work in May. We continue to look to move that forward during this time. A couple of other things that have been discussed that I'll highlight, but our work with partners on creating the Love Local GR site. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that, but if not, we'll send the link out. It's an opportunity to go and support our downtown businesses and employees during this difficult time. And then we're also working with some partners on the COVIDWM.org site. And that's really kind of a clearinghouse of information for small businesses. So both of those are up and running. Content continues to get updated. We hope that the community is finding them useful. The initial feedback has been very positive. One other thing, Chama and I from our team are going to be participating with a task force and committee that is reviewing applications for the MEDC grant that the Right Place received. So as you may have read about, the Right Place was awarded $1 million from the MEDC for use in their region. So around $600,000 that'll go to Kent County. They had to close the application period after about 72 hours because of the overwhelming response that they received. So over 2,000 businesses applied for those emergency funds, which are capped at $10,000 per business. So we're helping to create the sort of scoring matrix for that on how the funds will get distributed, and then also reviewing a tranche of applications. The goal is to get those funds out ASAP. I think they can release them as soon as next week, I believe on the 12th. So we're working with our partners on that. And in addition, I've been participating with a couple of economic recovery calls with the city, just as the mayor has touched on, wanting to make sure we're responding quickly during the time of crisis and what's needed immediately, but then also thinking long term in the weeks and months ahead as we look to get the city back up and running as quickly as possible. Those are some of the highlights I wanted to touch on. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, doesn't sound like we have any questions. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. Now is the time for public comment. If there's anyone on the call that would like to make a comment, now is the time. Just a reminder, it's not required, but it'd be nice to know your name, and you have 3 minutes. Okay, hearing none. Is there any board member that would like to make a comment or suggestion to close us out?
Hey, this is Jermel. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I wanted to just thank everybody, DGRI's staff especially, for all the work that you all are doing, work at the mayor's office, everything. In the past, I've made comments on the pedestrian counters, and so I'm wondering if those are still deployed and if it would be helpful or even beneficial for any of us or anyone to, I guess, have an idea of those numbers kind of pre-COVID-19, during COVID-19 and all this stuff, and perhaps shortly after. Just, I don't know. I'm just interested in what the traffic counts have been or may be in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Jermail. The counters are still out. We monitor them daily, if not weekly, so we can put together a report. We're also obviously closely tracking foot traffic, or I'm sorry, automobile traffic through parking. Also, we were really closely monitoring what existing businesses are on ground floors before everything kind of stalled, and so we'll have good counts to monitor businesses that are closing. So there's kind of a number of things that we're looking at. Marion on our team is kind of our lead data specialist, and she's pulling all that together. But we can package together at least a quick report on the traffic or the ped counts so that people can see how foot traffic has been impacted.
Good, thank you.
Anybody else? So I appreciate everyone's attendance today. One last thought I have. I believe in and try to maintain the mantra that nothing's ever as good as it seems, but nothing's ever as bad as it seems. So I do believe there's so much positive that can come out of this. Just everyone around this table, everybody within the city, I really think there's a lot of positive that can come out of this, even though it seems like that may not be the case today. But I know we can do this. I know we're going to rally together, and I know we're going to be better for it. So thanks, everybody.
Well said. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
The meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
face
you,
to
everyone.
face. See you
Thanks,
face
everybody.
to face next meeting.
See you in May.
Okay.
Hey, Tim. It's
Jana.
Jana. Hey.
Hey.
I'll put my camera on. Hey, so do I
I
need
have
to
to
do
the
something
TIFA
else?
meeting. I got to do the TIFA meeting.
Right,
Go
yeah, me
ahead.
too.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Will this automatically go into the TIFA meeting, or do I need to get out of here and go into
No,
the TIFA meeting?
it should be in the calendar invite.
Yeah.
So exit the DDA one out, and then there should be another link to join in. Did you have financials for that?
Wait a minute, did I?
I don't think you
Wait
did.
a minute. No, I didn't, just because we were on that quarterly basis.
That's fine. I wanted to make sure.
Okay, all right,
All right,
thanks.
see you there.
Bye. Yep, bye.
Goodbye.